The heat on the street seemed to melt even the asphalt as the wheels of Michael's luxurious car glided over the soft, wavy road. Michael, now in his early 30s and a real estate mogul, sat in the car squinting in the pleasant chilled breeze blowing from the air conditioner. He marveled at how far he had come, from a factory cleaner to one of the most famous names in the bustling city of Phoenix, Arizona. Michael's journey began years ago, when he worked as a cleaner in a factory. The job was grueling, but he was determined to change his circumstances. His break came when he got a job as a driver for the factory director. At that time, it seemed like a dream job, but Michael had bigger aspirations. He kept an old diary where he wrote down his goals, each one more ambitious than the last. Though he had forgotten about the diary for a while, rediscovering it reignited his determination to succeed. Despite personal setbacks, like his girlfriend leaving him, calling him a loser, Michael pressed on. He sold his small apartment, saved every cent, and eventually started his own real estate business. His perseverance paid off, and he now stood at the pinnacle of his success. Today was a special day for Michael. He was opening a new branch of his real estate agency. The event was grand, with journalists, balloons, and a festive atmosphere. As Michael arrived, he was greeted by the sight of a beautifully decorated building and the cheerful faces of his employees and guests. The journalists eagerly awaited him, but Michael had other things on his mind. As he stepped out of the car, the scorching sun immediately began to burn his skin. He grimaced, pulled out his sunglasses, and put them on. He tried to avoid the journalists, planning to address them later after ensuring everything was in order. Michael was meticulous about his plans and didn't like to deviate from them. While he inspected the event setup, an old, shabbily dressed woman approached him, asking for money. She was thin, gray-haired, and wrinkled, reminding Michael of someone from a distant past. Her plea was simple. She needed money to buy a loaf of bread. Michael, touched by her humility, took out a $100 bill and handed it to her without hesitation. As she tearfully thanked him, Michael's gaze fell on her earrings. They were tarnished but unmistakable. He remembered those earrings vividly. They had been a gift from her late husband, who had made them himself. He asked her, "Where did you get those earrings?" The woman's face turned pale, and she looked frightened. She hesitated before replying, "My late husband made them. They're very dear to me. I can't sell them, even if I'm starving." Michael felt a cold chill run down his spine. He remembered the most difficult times of his life and the woman who had helped him through them. This was Mrs. Henderson, the kind-hearted woman who had taken him and his mother in when they had nowhere else to go. Years ago, Michael's father had lost his job, come home drunk, and thrown them out of the house. His mother, desperate and with no place to turn, had stumbled upon Mrs. Henderson. She had fed them, sheltered them, and helped Michael's mother get back on her feet. Without her, Michael's life could have taken a much darker path. Michael was stunned. He asked, "Mrs. Henderson, do you remember me? You took in my mother and me when we had nowhere else to go. I was just a little boy." Tears welled up in Mrs. Henderson's eyes as she covered her face with her hands. "Michael, is it really you?" she whispered, her voice shaking. Journalists began to surround them, sensing a story. Michael tried to push them away, but they persisted. Mrs. Henderson started to disappear into the crowd, and Michael feared he would lose her again. He shouted to his driver, "Get her! Don't let her go!" His driver managed to catch up to her and bring her back. Michael, now more determined than ever, told the journalists to direct their questions to his staff. He needed to focus on Mrs. Henderson and find out more about her current situation. As they moved to a quieter spot, Michael asked, "What happened to you, Mrs. Henderson? Why are you in such a state?" Mrs. Henderson sighed heavily and began to recount her struggles, including the tragic assault on her granddaughter, Anna, by a local police officer named Dave. Despite their efforts, justice was never served, and Anna was left bedridden after a botched surgery. Mrs. Henderson had sold her apartment to fund the surgery, only to find themselves living in worsening conditions. Michael listened, his heart heavy with the weight of her words. He vowed then and there to repay the kindness Mrs. Henderson had shown him and his mother. This was his chance to give back, and he was determined to do everything in his power to help them. Michael sat with Mrs. Henderson in the quiet corner, his mind racing with thoughts of how to help her. As she continued to share her story, Michael felt a mix of sadness and determination. He remembered the little girl, Anna, with big green eyes, who used to look up at him with admiration. It was heartbreaking to hear about her suffering and the injustice she faced. "Mrs. Henderson," Michael said gently, "I need to know everything. Please tell me what happened to Anna." Mrs. Henderson took a deep breath and began to recount the events that had shattered their lives 7 years ago. Anna had just turned 15, a bright and cheerful girl with dreams of becoming a nurse. She was always helping her grandmother around the house and was loved by everyone in their neighborhood. One evening, as Anna was coming home early from work to celebrate her grandmother's birthday, she was followed by Officer Dave. He had been harassing her for a while, making unwanted advances that she politely but firmly rejected. That day, he was drunk and more aggressive than ever. He cornered her in the hallway of their apartment building, ignoring her pleas to be left alone. When she resisted, he attacked her brutally, leaving her severely injured. Anna was rushed to the hospital, where doctors worked tirelessly to save her life. She survived, but the damage was severe. Her spine was injured, and she was left bedridden. Mrs. Henderson sold her apartment to pay for Anna's surgery, but the procedure was botched, leaving Anna in even more pain and suffering. "We tried to get justice," Mrs. Henderson said, her voice trembling, "but Officer Dave denied everything. He used his connections to escape punishment, and the doctors who botched the surgery covered up their mistakes. We were left with nothing." Michael listened intently, anger boiling inside him. He couldn't believe the injustice Mrs. Henderson and Anna had endured. He knew he had to act, and he had the means to make a difference. "Mrs. Henderson, I'm going to help you," Michael said firmly. "We'll get Anna the medical care she needs, and we'll make sure those responsible are held accountable." Mrs. Henderson looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Michael. You've always been a kind soul. I don't know how to repay you." "There's no need for repayment," Michael replied. "You helped me and my mother when we had nothing. It's my turn to give back." Michael immediately sprang into action. He called his office and instructed his team to find the best doctors for Anna. He also contacted a private investigator to gather evidence against Officer Dave and the negligent doctors. Michael's determination was unwavering. He was going to see this through. The next day, Michael visited Anna. She was lying in bed, looking frail and exhausted. Her eyes widened with recognition when she saw Michael. "Michael? Is it really you?" she asked, her voice weak but filled with hope. "Yes, Anna, it's me," Michael said, sitting beside her and holding her hand. "I'm here to help you. We're going to get you the care you need." Anna's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Michael. I thought no one would ever help us." "You don't have to thank me," Michael replied. "You just need to focus on getting better." Michael's team worked swiftly. They arranged for Anna to be seen by a top spinal surgeon, who confirmed that she needed another surgery to correct the previous mistakes. The surgeon was confident that with the right care, Anna could regain her ability to walk. In the meantime, the private investigator gathered damning evidence against Officer Dave and the negligent doctors. Michael's lawyers were ready to take the case to court, determined to seek justice for Anna. As Anna prepared for her surgery, Michael stayed by her side, offering support and encouragement. He also made sure Mrs. Henderson was comfortable, moving her into a better living situation and providing financial support. The day of the surgery arrived, and Michael felt a mix of hope and anxiety. He prayed for Anna's recovery, knowing how much it meant to both her and Mrs. Henderson. The surgery was long and complex, but the surgeon emerged with a hopeful smile. "The surgery went well," the surgeon announced. "Anna has a good chance of walking again with proper rehabilitation." Michael and Mrs. Henderson were overjoyed. They knew there was still a long road ahead, but this was the first step towards a better future. As Anna began her rehabilitation, Michael's team prepared for the legal battle. They were ready to hold those responsible accountable, ensuring that justice would finally be served. Michael's determination and kindness were unwavering. He knew that helping Anna and Mrs. Henderson was the right thing to do, and he was prepared to see it through to the end. The story of resilience, gratitude, and the power of giving back was unfolding, with each day bringing new hope and strength to those who needed it most. As Anna began her rehabilitation, Michael's resolve to seek justice for her only grew stronger. The private investigator had gathered substantial evidence against Officer Dave and the doctors who had botched Anna's surgery. Michael's legal team was preparing a robust case, and the court date was set. Meanwhile, Anna's recovery was progressing well. The new surgery had been successful, and with each passing day, she showed signs of improvement. She worked tirelessly with her physical therapist, determined to walk again. Michael visited her often, offering words of encouragement and support. His presence was a source of strength for both Anna and Mrs. Henderson. One evening, as Michael sat with Anna and Mrs. Henderson, he reflected on the journey they had been through. "You know, Anna," he said, "your determination reminds me of when I first started out. I had nothing, but I had dreams, and those dreams kept me going." Anna smiled weakly. "You never gave up, did you, Michael?" "No, I didn't," Michael replied. "And neither will you. We're going to see this through together." The court proceedings began, and Michael's legal team presented a compelling case. The evidence against Officer Dave was overwhelming. Witnesses testified about his abusive behavior, and the private investigator's findings left no room for doubt. The negligent doctors were also held accountable, their malpractice exposed in the courtroom. As the trial went on, Michael could see the toll it was taking on Mrs. Henderson. She was exhausted, both emotionally and physically. He made sure she had everything she needed, from comfortable accommodations to medical care. Michael's gratitude for Mrs. Henderson's past kindness fueled his determination to see justice served. The trial reached its climax when Officer Dave took the stand. His defense crumbled under the weight of the evidence against him. The jury found him guilty, and the judge sentenced him to a lengthy prison term. The doctors were also found guilty of malpractice and were ordered to compensate Anna for her suffering. The courtroom erupted in a mix of emotions. Anna and Mrs. Henderson were in tears, finally seeing justice for the pain they had endured. Michael felt a profound sense of relief. He had kept his promise to repay the kindness shown to him and his mother so many years ago. After the trial, Michael took Anna and Mrs. Henderson out to celebrate. It was a modest celebration, but the joy in their hearts was immeasurable. Anna's progress in her rehabilitation had been remarkable. She was now able to stand and take a few steps with assistance. Her determination and Michael's unwavering support had brought her to this point. As they sat together, enjoying their meal, Mrs. Henderson looked at Michael with gratitude in her eyes. "Michael, you've done so much for us. I don't know how we'll ever repay you." "You don't need to repay me," Michael said, his voice filled with emotion. "You've already done more for me than you can imagine. This is my way of giving back." Anna reached out and held Michael's hand. "Thank you, Michael. You've given us hope and a new chance at life." Michael smiled. "It's the least I could do. Now let's focus on the future. There's so much more ahead for all of us." The journey had been long and arduous, but it had also been a testament to the power of resilience, gratitude, and the importance of giving back. Michael's success had become a means to uplift others, showcasing the profound impact of kindness and determination. As they moved forward, they did so with a renewed sense of hope and a stronger bond than ever before. The story was far from over, but they were ready to face whatever came next, knowing that together, they could overcome anything. In the months following the trial, life began to take on a new rhythm for Michael, Anna, and Mrs. Henderson. Anna's rehabilitation continued to show promising results. She progressed from standing with assistance to walking short distances with a cane. Each step she took was a testament to her resilience and determination. Michael had not only provided financial support but also became a constant presence in their lives. He often visited them, bringing groceries, medical supplies, and a comforting sense of security. His bond with Anna grew stronger, and they found solace in each other's company. One sunny afternoon, Michael and Anna took a walk in the park. Anna, still using her cane, moved with a sense of purpose. They found a bench under a large oak tree and sat down, enjoying the warm breeze. "You've come a long way, Anna," Michael said, watching her with admiration. "Thanks to you, Michael," Anna replied, her eyes filled with gratitude. "I wouldn't be here without your help." "You had the strength all along," Michael said. "I just gave you a little push." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching children play and families picnic nearby. Michael turned to Anna, his expression serious. "Anna, there's something I've been meaning to ask you," he began, his voice tinged with nervousness. Anna looked at him, her heart pounding. "What is it, Michael?" "I've developed feelings for you, Anna. You're an incredible woman, and I admire your strength and courage. Would you consider giving us a chance?" Anna's eyes widened, and she felt a surge of emotions. "Michael, I feel the same way. You've been my rock through all of this. I'd like to see where this could go." Michael's face lit up with a smile. "I'm so glad to hear that, Anna. Let's take it one step at a time, just like your recovery." Their relationship blossomed, bringing a new sense of joy and hope to their lives. Michael continued to support Anna's recovery, and as her strength returned, they began to make plans for the future. Mrs. Henderson, seeing the happiness in her granddaughter's eyes, felt a deep sense of contentment. She often reflected on how Michael's kindness had transformed their lives. One evening, as she and Michael sat on the porch of their new home, she expressed her gratitude. "Michael, I can't thank you enough for everything you've done for us," Mrs. Henderson said, her voice filled with emotion. "You've given us a new lease on life." "It was the least I could do, Mrs. Henderson," Michael replied. "You helped me and my mother when we had nowhere to go. This is my way of giving back." Mrs. Henderson smiled. "You've done more than that. You've become a part of our family." The legal battle had been long and grueling, but justice had been served. Officer Dave was serving a lengthy prison sentence, and the negligent doctors had been held accountable. The compensation they received allowed Anna to continue her rehabilitation without financial worries. As the years passed, Anna's recovery continued to improve. She eventually regained the ability to walk without assistance, a milestone that brought tears of joy to everyone's eyes. Michael and Anna's relationship grew stronger, and they began to plan a future together. Michael's real estate business continued to thrive, but he never forgot the importance of giving back. He established a foundation to support victims of injustice and provide medical care for those in need. The foundation's work was a tribute to Mrs. Henderson's kindness and Anna's resilience. On the day of the foundation's grand opening, Michael stood on the stage, addressing a crowd of supporters and beneficiaries. Anna and Mrs. Henderson were in the front row, their faces beaming with pride. "Today, we celebrate the power of resilience, gratitude, and the importance of giving back," Michael said. "This foundation is a testament to the impact kindness and determination can have on our lives. Together, we can make a difference and uplift those in need." The audience erupted in applause, and Michael felt a profound sense of fulfillment. His journey from a factory cleaner to a real estate mogul had come full circle, guided by the values of kindness and perseverance instilled in him by Mrs. Henderson. As the event concluded, Michael joined Anna and Mrs. Henderson, embracing them both. They had faced many challenges, but together, they had overcome them all. Their story was a shining example of how resilience, gratitude, and the power of giving back could transform lives and create a brighter future for all.